However, despite the fact that I constantly talk about principal imperial bloodline, which is international bloodline, and I have been equally very much pricing the previous historic heritages on all of the territories across the planet. The fact is that today somehow I delivered this discussion, and it happened that all of the arrows crossed on this stage and on the discussion I am delivering today, which on another side is happening still very much in orthodox platform, on the orthodoxy playground, which I have to point out, although I wasn't inclined initially to make any kind of a religious reference, to the extent that someone continue to make too much significance or to continue to present religious presences, I will have to at some point underline that we talk here about protocol of Orthodox religion, which from my perspective is majorly in relation to territory and given a cultural identity and cultural setting on specific territory of specific times. In substance, religion sums to that as well. It reflects actually the certain setting, cultural setting, cultural identity setting on certain territory. To the extent, therefore, that various cultures out there, especially of Muslim origin, continue to bring forward their Muslim religion, I have to make here a clarification that this is happening under the roof of Orthodox religion and being born out of it. I'm also not happy very much to use expression under a roof literally, although it might be that we talk equally literally, but then we live in the world where one needs to be equally protected. And if you are surrounded by wolves, then to have your own would be equally appropriate. As long as we do not bring much more trustful setting on planetary levels, I still going to believe and have also for such reasons pointed out why national identity continue to be important. Of course, not to extremes or not driving it to the extremes. But if we now need to bring the conversation on levels of cultural identity on specifics in the specific event, then that is the specific event I need to point out at. To the extent that also we talk about protocol Excalibur, King Arthur, or a Highlander, I'm going to notice that King Arthur, protocol King Arthur and Excalibur are second-hand reference protocols. Excalibur is about pulling the sword from a stone. So that is second-hand reference. King Arthur or our tour is equally round table reference, is reference to second-hand event. Only Highlander is reference to first-hand event. And that is why I'm going to use today that particular reference for my work. I have to also clarify here that this would not be exactly an accident, because we talk about a region where it's happening the most recent civilizational development. The Renaissance is still very much fresh in memory of our civilization, still very much drives by the standards accomplished in the Renaissance period. So we talk still very much about the latest active civilizational circle. Although Far East countries are certainly part of the entire civilization as we speak, still they appear more as a further echo, which I today recognize certainly will need to be much more present, because certain features of that cultural setting certainly need to be straightened on the planetary levels. And here you see that certain plateaus still contribute. Well, I'm going to notice that some other kind of plateaus, regretfully, play rather some kind of protocol of Niagara, sensation of Niagara, rather than actual contribution to our moving forward. I'm going to conclude, therefore, it is not just by accident delivering this kind of elaboration if not actual, but rather a result of the geography of the terrain itself, and the fact that we have still reminiscence of the recent civilizational criteria developed on the territory is still very much fresh in the overall cultural setting and overall cultural standards and criteria that still are very much a standard for personal development. As a result of what our material dimension will never be too material. And in that respect, I will notice that for the same reason, what I still am going to call provinces, that is the Western territories, appear much more as a peripheral to such drivers, and as a result end up being more material, because in substance have lost the actual qualitative value system, the weight of it, that and how far it actually reflects into building the standards of human identity, which is weaker on the peripheries, on the West peripheries. And as a result, there is a much more mental room for them to become much more material and in the process become victims of their material drivers. For on our plateau, on our territories, we have the most balanced approach when it comes to either accomplished latest civilizational standards or how far we are going to measure now the material value system and what are going to be parameters that we will continue to use. I'm going to find actually very much a real golden standard in the way how a civilization should be deployed. I'm listening now on YouTube some presentation going on in English language, but with very visible, noticeable Middle Eastern presence, strong Middle Eastern presence, pulling out Shakespeare. Shakespeare is also reference to second-hand events, regretfully. And if someone wants to pull that or to bring that as a credit to what entire England is in substance, I would not be so quick into jumping into that conclusion as long as we have here European setting still and territory that still withhold to great an extent a reference to European continent. Although the world is not the principle, I have not found golden standard of civilization development overtaking on the material side. Neither where we are at the moment is not that much of a golden standard either. Territories from where I originate, that is where I have been born, are among in the category of the poorest territories in Europe. That is rather embarrassing to even say. I wouldn't say that that is the extent to which we do not appreciate material dimension. After all, the entire Renaissance was very much about material dimension, although it was a very much structured approach to what format of material dimension. But it was about material dimension. Where we are today is going too much on the other side of the equation, and it is not status we can accept. We have been surrounded by now the emerging economies that continue to be very much fond on their instant expansion overnight, yet I have found them all still very much crossing their arrows on our territories. That is going to impose a huge question, significant question on number one, what drives their definition of economic development while still clearly everything is plugged on the previous systems, which today for more than 10 years we are harshly criticizing. And second, do they have what kind of capacity they have to change anything about any of it and to deliver some kind of new wave in development? Can we say that these economies have such capacity? To that extent, I'm going to point out further on that I emerge where I emerge, and the arrows are crossing today exactly there and nowhere else. And from there, I'm going to ask them right now, do they have any other alternative for development if we take out the previous ways of generating the primary initial capital. That is not just giving me the crown all the way to England and backwards, but also providing very much a chair and a desk as we speak. Well, I'm not talking about boxing ring now and bringing Rambo on the stage, although I'm very sure that can be arranged as well. I'm rather talking about legal levels today, about a legitimate approach today. Because after all, this is 21st century and we are pledging today to legal recovery, not recovery, but bringing our historic heritage to legal parameters. Well, then this is still very much discussion on legal parameters. And what I have said, therefore, entitles me with the work I enclose here. I will ask, therefore, for that matter, Muslims to reside on their Muslim territories and start recovering and recalibrating with the 21st century, confronting the enormous problems they have today to recalibrate their obsolete cultural systems in 21st century standards. We can, to the end of the day now, admire your previous historic accomplishments in all of the previous times, but we always live in the present time. And our answers should always be in the present time, assessing our actions of the present times. Because if our mind is not there to assist our actions, then we are going to end up wasting our time with the actions that would not be relevant to our mind energy of the present times. No one wants that to happen. I have been enclosing tons of goodwill to understanding being of some crafted of some kind of teacher material, and very often saying myself on quite mature stage have given enough time for all of you to understand the size of this discussion I'm landing today, given you enough time to recalibrate without to feel that you are that you need to panic about something or to think that you were supposed now to disappear as certain Muslim religions I understand now consider, for example, Jewish population, which is rather laughable. If it is not laughable, then it's tragic. It's tragedy. It is narrow-mindedness rather than supremacy. It is inability to perceive rather than supreme. It is shortage rather than grandiosity. I have no intention to waste too much time taking seriously self-perceived, egocentric, maniac level of religious deploy with an enormous amount of struggles and horrifying events that they have been presenting to our Orthodox territories in all of the previous times. And if we want to be a bit much more bringing conversation on the ground here, it would be very much bringing enormous list of enormous terrifying tortures that have been implemented on our Orthodox territories by Muslim occupiers in all of the previous centuries. Still very much fresh memories. From the culture, we cannot say even as more developed than it is our cultural setting. There is no measurement by which today can enclose their cultural development to what we have accomplished in Europe, where I'm going to enclose again clean, neat, organized as a leading event. Now go on Muslim territories. Are you going to find clean, neat, and perfectly organized? Well, then what on earth we are talking about? We talk about someone not even qualifying, let's say taking supremacy position. Supremacy on what? You cannot even qualify. Can you please explain yourself to everyone else so we understand on what ground you hold yourself to some kind of supreme positioning? And can you please do not talk in past terms? We live in the present times. I'm going to therefore ask you to retrain from stretching that far and using your accent while speaking in the name of England and history of England. If I have put my poll today there, or I have put my poll today there, and I have no intention to argue with people that much about the specifics. England belonged to Iron Age, by the way. And the Highlander is very much a reference to Iron Age. The specifics in this case scenario will always be the specifics of the very specific ingredients required to deliver certain performance. Today you will be measured by your identity, your mental strength, your mental configuration, your physical configuration, your cultural configuration, and your ability to bring yourself in the present times as most contemporary and competitive subjects. And if that's not the case on any of the above categories, then you pause yourself and give for yourself some time to reach at least level of being competitive before you even get to think about being supreme. And if the houses have been built by my mind and your money, it's mind that prevails today. And I'm going to ask you to differentiate today from the houses that I have entitlement to call mine for the purpose of delivering function on these levels. Not that much on the ground, not that much in the clouds, but neither that much on the ground. Well, I can see you today very pragmatic, very much on, all over Bitcoin and all of the rest of the financial agreements. I wonder, have you been ever in the clouds at all? And if you have not been in the clouds, can you even claim your own history? You're very eager to claim your eagles. Eagle is political symbol. It refers to philosophy. I cannot hear you being philosophical enough today, not even nearby of what I expect to hear anyone to come here and bring this and participate in conversation with me here. But no one can accept to participate in this conversation with me. What eagle? You cannot defend your eagle symbols here. Your eagle is with me. I am claiming today the two-headed eagle because I am the one looking equally at east and equally at west. And I am declaring the actual reference of two-headed eagle being to Orthodox territories. And where the castles belong, exactly, what dimension? Instead of speaking about Shakespeare, that would be your question for today. Can you please answer it? In context of the events that happened recently and were highlighting few decades old incident, it will need to be noticed that Israel appeared to be completely detached from a realization of what Israel is actually, or what is the crown of Israel, and accordingly what would be the identity of Jewish culture. They simply, from perspective how we have detected that flag, appear that never actually really happened. They happened in some kind of parallel dimension of traveling Holy Grail that equally never happened because they never appear to notice, to appreciate even enough that flag. And never certainly managed to live by it. That is the tragedy about the Jewish people. That they simply don't even know who they are, or maybe I should say, what is their principal defining monarchy stamp. We agree that under flag there would be a couple of tribes united. However, when you bring a flag forward, you should know precisely and exactly to what it makes a reference and to what you pledge. Today, we have found Israel in total debacle in terms of self-realization. Israel have not managed to self-realize itself, so the territories here is completely second question. The principal question of Israel, or problem I'm going to say, or issue, is going to be that Israel does not have idea what identity that flag is representing. That is, you have principal direct imperial identity there reflected on that flag. Israel does not know how to relate to its own historic references. If we go in England, as of today, Israel is again, and equally through the entire Renaissance period, Israel was never a star. Israel was always playing the dark force from the shadows. The blue without the sun, regretfully, happens to be on the dark side of the moon. You're going to notice the symbols in that flag are not that much direct, straightforward reference to identity as much as they are a reference to certain features of certain identities. It is as a remake. But after all, aristocracy of England was having enough time in all the previous centuries to do plenty of remakes of the history, and this is one of their vital remakes. But sir, you can notice that they have been playing around mega identities for sure. On that ground, also to say England is land of Israel does not make any sense because, or West for that matter, does not make any sense because there is no such thing as Israel. To the extent that they have absolutely no appropriate relationship to their own history, we cannot say that ever was enough land called Israel. On that note, I find absolutely appropriate to confiscate the flag starting from Israel because Israel never lived up to that flag. Or also, I'm going to recognize as that flag by itself does not have a reference to sustainability happening on the region where such flag does not even belong. That's all will indicate that Israel is a technically artificial design from perspective of national identity, and from that point onwards it would be absolutely pointless to talk about state or territory as well because you don't have identity properly recognized. That identity clearly has not been crafted as belonging to the region where it is. It is territory clearly, that is nation rather, that has been created completely as a matter of certain purposefulness to exist on territory as such. So it is technically a complete political artificial design. In philosophical terms, it is therefore the light of dark, the sign of darkness, of devilship, versus the sun reference, which is light, reference to light of God or reference to God. Israel would be reference to devilship. And throughout history, that is exactly how these people ended up to be deployed. And to what all of that connects? All of that connects to Serbia, that equally has been gained the status Phantom of the Opera. So I'm going to notice here Israel is actually very much matching Phantom of the Opera status completely. Then the next question is, in what opera house? And here again we are going to find again Hazars and Kells, for that matter, signing that is North Europe, signing under the Zeus, finding Zeus somewhere in South Hemisphere as well, Australia and New Zealand today. Certainly generating Zeus in identity in USA, and certainly managing to get Putin on their side in the present times. in that context, we might say that Israel certainly regained the status of Phantom of the Opera. Not Israel as declared officially today as occupied territory technically, under Netanyahu, which is technically occupied territory, but the genie is in the bottle of that territory, very much of my identity, very much in reference to imprisoned flame, which in Serbia is much more evident, but in Israel no one would say that we would be talking about something like that as well, because Israel was 2 times burned down to the ground. Israel does not know even who they are to begin with. That is critical point about Israel. Apart of the fact that they become engineered in the process, literally have become someone else, have become a new nation. That's new nation. Now it's confronted by territories that's much older, with older population. Continue to play some kind of lost childhood. And I'm much more sorry for Israel in this term, in such term, than for Palestine. Although Palestine certainly found itself today beaten, as someone is beating up the hive of bees in order to get honey. But how much we have anything to save from Western civilizations? I have been saying infrastructure is vital, yes. Not much of a software, not much of the actual cultural valuation, because that turned to be very, very pagan. It turned to be that civilizations were not actually developing as much as they were rolling on the latest technological accomplishments, repeating all of the same vandalism and all of the same prime ranking in the way how they are building societies. Here we still have upside down protocol on the planet because the societies actually never managed to develop to that level of organization in the societies to actually be recognized real forces that are driving societies. We can question today, was ever really the planet was building in the real on the real value systems? Of course, at earlier times would have been much more straightforward. At earlier times, more developed caste was really more developed caste. Today, that has been lost, but in substance, continue to be still very strong criteria versus everything else. It is a question that does have its specifics, and then it will need to bring certain general cultural assessments as well. On personal level, we certainly talk about specifics. However, this is very much now becoming question of just 100 years developed system of education, and the cultural context continues to be still much more resilient. So the framework out of which individual deploy is happening is today what we have to look at. It is also going to affect America and that is Western world as well, because Western world in substance is having exactly the same problem. The cultural settings are obsolete. The individual rating product of obsolete education system, obsolete family value protocol. This disastrous half of West is nothing better of what we call prime societies. West is nothing less prime itself. Now that will need to be taken into consideration here, not to be forgotten that West is nothing less prime than the rest of the planet. But also it is being trapped, or should I say framed, by this material promise for earnings, which is much harder. It's much harder here to bring ideals out of it. We can talk about legal systems, that's the best way to go with. The correctness in most general terms is that cannot be compromised anymore. interconnected affairs of handicapped society. What it should not be underestimated here is that we have actually this is, phenomenon that would very easily be qualifying to be categorized as extraterrestrial, actually, because we have that level of biological categorization and that level of building parallel value system in the society, which basically have nothing to do with actual value system. We have here handicapped society that is closer to animal form and shape. It's having its interconnected affairs within the evangelical concept of Western society that is building now civilization, very much aware of their handicapped positions, and very much being organized from positions of deliberately playing down the opposition, in this case now the human, while continuing instead to what is peculiar here, that instead that they actually try to depart from their handicapped positions, in the way how they organize, they actually return to it and do not get out of it. And the consequence also, it acts as a black hole that is dragging everyone else down. And that is what becomes dangerous for the entire planet. That is the point at which the planet will need to act. At this stage, the joke stops. When it is in question, implementing of constitution, it will be noticed that what that means in substance is that none of the nations can be accepted or tolerated to do whatever they want to do. To the extent that each of the nations are positioned on this planet, they all will need to have a responsibility for a certain level of conduct in the way how we have been discussing usually United Nations. We are discussing United Nations and various forms of international orders. What, however, until today is usually presumed is that certain major 5, 6 or whatever countries of United Nations have unquestionable right to veto, and that in most of the cases they're presumed as absolute correctness, and then from them onwards begins investigation about wrongdoing. That is clearly legally absolutely unsustainable and unacceptable. It more sounds much more as occupation of the planet rather than managing the planet. In order to provide management of the realm, you have to provide principles upon which you are going to manage the realm. Similarly, in the way how, for example, it has been prepared constitution in America or wherever, constitutions on various other countries. Here we have to provide constitution for this planet. That will make none of the territories that much independent, but very much bound by promoting law and order by the principles of this planet. Basically, it all comes to that. I'm providing here the main lines upon which the constitution on this planet should be drawn. I'm replacing the expression of I'm not happy with it should not be like that. So what it should not be like that is that people continue to discuss cultures in gender terms. So there is a culture that is in male terms. There is a culture that is or outlook that is in female terms. As for example, I watched yesterday on the Instagram some reminiscence to Hollywood movies, and you have now black-haired male and blonde female. And what if you have blonde son? What happens? Can you please answer me this question? And why you continue to participate in political discussions from your position of being a regular citizen? Can you please overcome that of your disease, that politics belong to the streets? Politics does not belong to the streets because, as you realized by this work, which I deliberately present today to the entire planet, for you can notice what it takes to step up in politics. Can you please just stop participating in politics from your everyday perspective of life? You have to be called upon certain duty, which you have to deserve as well. Stop assuming that that is your field where you can go and do whatever you think or say whatever you think. You have your question for today. Can you answer it, please? And I'm sick of listening your nonsense on daily basis. And you're using letter I as well. Seriously? You're using letter I from some kind of straight level of positioning. That is absurd. That is absurd. You have to deserve your letter I, for God's sake. I also have to record to be stated that I caught Serbia into trying very hardly to make me miserable, to look miserable in front of the entire planet, to downgrade my existence, my entire existence. You see, I'm going to find that lacking not just character but also intelligence. Such approach is lacking, first of all, in number one, intelligence, then it is lacking character, and then it is lacking complete comprehension about how someone should behave in 21st century on international stage, let aside when it is in question someone's ambition to step up. These are all wrong steps. This is not alphabet for success. This is alphabet for disaster. I'm going to notice such lack of tact, culture, integrity, and history, or and endurance as a character, as a critical point upon which someone would be judged, especially in ambition to higher positions on the planet. In the same time, I'm going to notice that Serbia is very much happy to continue to define as a tribunal culture and completely ignoring Yugoslavia history of Yugoslavia as some wrongdoing that happened on their territories, while they assume that they are godly correct. Now that assumption of godly correctness is very symptomatic for all of the tribunal societies, but cannot be accepted as a state of mind of someone that ran, again, I'm going to say, for top position of the planet. That is not going to be easily tolerated. I'm also going to further notice that there was a very long history of remaking Serbia to be Phantom of the Opera together with Israel. And today, Serbia for themselves gained very much negative reputation. As such, it's certainly not going to be number one country to be proposed for leading the planet into the future. Because therefore, I doubt they would have any identity or substance from where they can pull such promise. Equally, I wonder from where on earth they are pulling their presence today as we speak, if not by following everything, every day what I'm going to say, and instantly translating it on the ground as their ground force. I'm going, therefore, to report to United Nations immediately as we speak, Serbia to be immediately restrained from further application on the ground of what I am going to say for a day, while they are using completely everything, any credentials that I'm using attached to my character, they're confiscating them and immediately using as their political stage. I'm going to say again, Serbia political stage does not have approval to use my work on the ground as it is their work. And I'm asking international community to immediately stop Serbia for such of their deploy, which is nothing of their deploy on the ground. I'm going to find that devious, rather, and I'm going to notice the Phantom of the Opera does not look as projected in that movie, but certainly look as tribes of Serbia. What it will need to be noticed here also, how this entire matter is going to affect the entire concept and protocol upon which monarchy of England exists. This is not, I will notice that the people, let's say, trapped there, although they don't look to me at all trapped into anything. It looks to me like they're very much enjoying their life and their positioning. So no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to call them trapped because they don't look as trapped. They have been obviously selling out their in positioning and accepting compromise after compromise after compromise. They're basically being blackmailed into their position. I'm not going to recognize any credibility to position to protocol that exists in centuries and has not been talking about any reform in any of the times since Magna Carta, which on one side completely surrendered the executive power, on the other side continues to keep itself in possession. And one would to ask, excuse me, the consequence of signing out from the legal orders is not going to legitimize you more on the power. You become empowered outlaw. That is absurd. We have not managed here to accomplish what I wanted to do there. We have not managed to do that. Maybe they have not been obvious in position also to answer to this call because they lived long enough. What I have managed to do with this projection I'm deploying here is to take the protocol with me. I'm going to make this very clear, therefore, why I cannot accept them as active part of the protocol, especially because of their high association with Tribunal Society of Serbia, which I would be wrong that would have been ever disconnected. Does not even matter. These are now some grand levels, planetary levels of prime societies, clearly exist interconnected on the prime levels. And that is where all of the wrongdoing of the present times belong, from a variety of this highly predatory palette of behavior that is still present on the planet via big companies. That is very aligned with tribunal societies. I'm going to ask you to notice that what I'm promoting here is completely different approach and different, and the way how I developed the imperial protocol, therefore, is very much calling it equally as a continuation, because none of us have fallen here from the sky, and would be absolutely equally inappropriate that I do not appreciate the forces that have brought me to this level that I actually today can say I am continuing. One of such forces was Imperial Yugoslavia, also looked as socialism. In substance, it was imperial force. So here you can see when we work on these upper levels of this conceptual ideological thinking, you don't you depart from the facts, from the specifics. You find yourself in the clouds of building the principles in the way how you want them to be, rather than to feel that you have to be trapped in the past. And that is what I'm doing here. I'm taking it out on the principle level, developing it on principle level, and then attaching it to the institutional reference and call it continuation. What in that case scenario you end up calling outlaws is what you end up calling outlaws. And I can't do not much, I can't do anything about it. What I can do is to prevent them to be shotgunned down in the forest as they have done to monarchy of Russia. I can prevent that. And no much than that. No much than that. I can promote still protocol bloodlines. I can ask for some kind of dignified treatment. But I cannot give them what they want here to continue to have that level of power. That is absurd. That is where we are right now. Also, we have to notice that they have become promotional marketing for human engineering and human production, which sets human on the level of products. Here also we find very much in question biological extremism, because these people speak about homo or human as artificial design. Well, clearly they have to be their positions on some kind of position of Homo sapiens, obviously, because they refer to our human as a new human. And as such, denying the human features, calling it plastic or calling it artificial intelligence, well, they assume themselves as a standard of human. Well, we have not delivered that discussion on the ground. They have not declared themselves as a humans, or they have not declared standard human on the planet. Therefore, they cannot talk about artificial human because they have not declared the definition of actual human. I'm going to assume that they are rather hiding somewhere in the forest from position of some kind of Homo sapiens, although here Homo sapiens become much more altered than it is projected on that graph of Darwin. But the question would be, excuse me, but what is on the other side of the equation? Where is the human? The human on this planet is, if you follow the Darwin graphic, which is next to, if we talk about blast of human dimension of the planet, in any case scenario, very much indicative that we talk here about evolving processes which are also very much actual event that we talk about evolving processes of our human and the way how a human look. If you look at the statues of Renaissance, for example, you will notice that we have here a charade of characters, including the not exactly human-like beings. Today we talk about much more standardized approach, nothing less of a human. We talk about improvement of human protocol. Everyone would assume that is the most natural event that would happen. Yes, when we think about with whom you're going to get married, you think about improving everything that you don't like about yourself. We do that subconsciously at our getting married decision. Not with order, not in order, someone to end up calling us artificial design. Therefore, going to find that very inappropriate and require certainly someone to be asked on duel. And today I'm asking these forces on duel. Therefore, can you please represent me your position of being defined as a human? Therefore, let's make clear how I'm going to find today matrix defined. That is, where is my work? That is, my work will need to go where we find that we all agree it's going to happen, the political matrix of the planet. That is then become called matrix house, because there would be the matrix work delivered from that house. Matrix work today is the work I enclose. There cannot be any other definition of matrix work. Therefore, we talk about protocol Highlander here, direct approach, identity protocol, in protocol human, defined and declared, and defended with this work. At that point, I declare political matrix on the planet with this work, and therefore not with, but as of this work and as of my position. The geographical location I have identified the most convenient England, because it is crossing to the present times the east and west world. No any other position is going to give me serious approach to east and west as if I am in England. Therefore, that position also will need to be prevented to be used by anyone else, where I am already deploying this work as a level of absolute, because it exists on the level of writing constitution of words and delivering it. As a rule for conduct for all of the nations on the planet on most principal terms upon which the institution of life on this planet exists. For quite some time, each civilization development has been measured by conduct. However, conduct is not going to be solidly enough to define human dimension in 21st century. It has been derived also the concept of intelligence, of course, as a matter of ongoing development of human identity, and plus it has been identified the sensitivity of the human dimension as critical factors upon which our entire civilization builds. That further deploys need that we preserve and also maintain, but also protect what we accomplish. Because nothing of that grows on the trees, but require very dedicated and well organized efforts to be built up into systems and civilizations. And that is why today I continue to be very protective with in most generalized terms, with most generalized approach of what we as a civilization want to protect today. And I'm very confident that most of the people feel exactly like that. No much is left to argue today. The matrix is therefore with me today, with this work, and so I require matrix political position to be dedicated to me and this work. Verdict: there is not much to be argued. I want this delivered. My kids would be deployed on the provinces where I would expect them to generate certain energies and alliances that will assist functioning of the empire. In this case scenario, we talk about the planet itself. So therefore, we find kids usually being deployed on the peripheries, because in case you have active matrix house, which means active work in the matrix house. Kids end up deployed on provinces that would be found convenient for their age and for their capacity to contribute and to assist, reconnect, and also matter of their wish, where they would prefer, where they would like to be, where they feel much more aligned. Very often, some of the kids you can keep with yourself because you also need them to learn from what you are working. So one of the kids would eventually be, that is also going to be very much in association with the character of the kids. What kind of predisposition they bring. Also the gender as well. Usually girl would stay in the house. The son would be sent on the provinces. It is logical for me to find eventually my son at some point going in Macedonia, and very much establishing his presence there. I'm going to find that, however, very much a matter of coordination of what we need to do on the matrix house, and to the extent that I need considerable assistance here with integration of entire planet. We talk about today active position of moving across the territories and integrating the territories, coordinating the territories to function in accordance with this planetary reawakening. So far, this has been already one position, and I want you to recalibrate on the entire situation, including how you're going to craft the entire legal system and how you're going to bring the constitution of your territories. For that purpose, I will enclose, therefore, my draft of constitution, and would expect that from that point onwards, it has been delivered the legal ground upon which each of the territories would start talking about legal correctness in any other aspect. There is one more momentum that will need to be clarified, especially when it is in question Serbia and their ambition for their principal deploy on the planet, which by itself it is a question that will need to be answered on its own. A part of that, I'm going to make the statement today, clarification, that the protocol beauty on Earth cannot be attached to notion of Serbia, but to notion Earth. That is, the beauty of on the planet belongs to the protocol Earth and realm of Earth. It is not protocol Serbia. It is protocol Earth and then Serbia confiscating it for their own agendas. Now that is different from how beauty deploy on Earth. Verdict for today. Next question here is, what exactly is Serbia? More you push on your side of the equation, more I will insist on that question. That would be very logical, and you would be a fool thinking that someone would not pull that question if needed. So on one side, we have completely not native tribes that have some kind of silly illusion that they will need to top up now the planet in 21st century with all of the developed parameters of civilization, deploying 7 billion of people living on the planet with a vast infrastructure of civilizational development as we speak. And then some kind of randomly deployed tribunal societies that live in a limbo space of their own quadrum and expecting, I really don't know what, but certainly I find them way too much on my way than I would need to find them, without enclosing any material discussion, but rather avoiding it. On the other side, we have association of Serbia with some kind of interplanetary or intergalactic or let's say cosmic intelligence, where equally it requires a person of my caliber to deliver formation of that presence. And I cannot see how that can be detached from my work, first of all. But if that goes to be detached from my work, then of course it's going to be asked the identity question there, an expected identity question to be answered. You might notice that I'm using English language rather carelessly. There is somehow deliberate ignorance of how successfully I'm going to use the language, because I'm using it rather as disagreement. This is not my mother language, and accordingly, I don't feel obliged with in the substance of my political presentation to fit the standards. In contrary, if I have delivered message that this is rather inconvenient, above all for myself, then we share this inconvenience. I'm not going to try to bring my perfect English. I'm bringing the inconvenience of using it. And if that is not perfectly well sitting on your ear, well, that means I have accomplished my goal. This work does not happen as convenience to you because it is not happening as convenience to me. Let's make that perfectly clear. The ones that are perfectly satisfied with their positioning, I can imagine, are really after the cherry on top of the cake, trying to deliver the perfect accent because they have delivered everything else, or because they have not delivered anything else. That is my definition of perfect English accents. Or when you have nothing else to do in your day, you certainly accomplished a perfect accent. What about not agreeing in which language this presentation should go as well? Or you're beyond that question. Well, then what house on earth you represent there? Exactly. Which one? Yes, which one? But if I can bring at least 10 figures of English history under my sleeve, under the sleeve of my right hand, would your English accent worth be anything? This deployed the two wings as well. One is in English and the other is absolutely nothing in English. And the body is you get what you get. I'm not here to please you. In contrary, I expect you understanding what is that why I'm wasting my time here on this earth today. But I am sick of listening your following your phone presentation under that flag. Can you bring yourself at least at stage of ready to begin again? The identity. What identity we are looking for? What identity I announced rather. What house you represent within your entire cultural heritage. Can you say that you would know exactly what characters would be driving such houses? Are we clear here that you have clear presentation, clear sense of what kind of character that should be? We are talking about continuing on the concept of historic heritage at the valuation point, not at the point of bringing the theater out of it.